Hi there, I'm sharing some rattan basket weaving techniques, and today I'm going to share the continuous weave basket technique. This is a technique of weaving where you're doing plain weave, but you're using a reed until you run out of that reed. So you're working around and around the basket until you run out of that piece of reed, and then you splice in a new piece. Your basket walls end up being slightly at a diagonal going upward because you're working in a shape that's building up at an angle. There are two ways to do continuous weave. One is on an odd number of stakes. So you're working on a basket with an odd number of stakes. And that would typically be a round basket that has the stakes built into a wooden base where you tuck the stakes into the base, and then you can have an odd number of stakes and then you weave in the round. On this basket, it's a round basket with the stakes building the base and the walls, so I end up with an even number of stakes. And so when you work the continuous weave on even number of stakes, you will weave in a pattern where you're going over two every row. So you end up building a stair-step pattern around your basket. And if you can see this, I went over these two stakes and then under, and did an over-under pattern from then on until I came over and stair-stepped one stake over and went over these two stakes and then over these two stakes and built the stair step around the basket as I was weaving. So that's a way to do continuous weave on even stakes. On an odd number of stakes, you won't have that stair step. It'll just continue around in a continuous weave until you run to the end of your piece of reed. So I will show you how to get started with this continuous weave on this partially done basket. If you want a completed version of how to completely make this basket with a wire handle, I have a course available on my website. You can find that in the description below. So to start here, I have an end overlapped on this stake, and that's where I'm going to start weaving. So I'll grab a new piece of reed, and this is a short piece, but using short pieces in continuous weave is okay because you're just going to be weaving as long as you have that piece of reed and then starting a new length. So I'm going to overlap 4, so counting back from this end, 1, 2, 3, 4, tuck it in and behind this stake, over this stake, behind this stake, and then hide that end behind there, and then continue in an over under weave pattern, just a basic plain weave around the basket like so, going over and then under, over and then under. And here I've come to where my stair step pattern is, so 2, 2, 2, and 2. So I'm going to go under this one where I left off and go over these two here, so over this stake and this stake, and then under the next stake. And I'm just continuing that stair step around the basket, and then I'll keep going and weave till the end of my piece of weaver, and then trim this end so that's to the outside edge of this stake. And the outside edge is the edge furthest away from your weaver. I'm weaving left to right like I read because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, feel free to weave right to left if that feels more comfortable. I've never tried that, and I've never spoken to a left-handed weaver, so I don't know if that even works, but feel free to try it. And I'd love to hear how that goes. Leave a comment below. Okay, so now to splice in a new length. I'll take this long one, and I just drop the end of my reed on the floor as I'm weaving and weave along from pulling it off the floor. Hopefully your floor is clean. So again, back 4 stakes, overlapping that end like so, and then weave around your basket. And with continuous weave, you can add tension to your weaver as you go so that you start to form the shape of your walls. With this basket, the shape that I'm going for is a bean pot, which has a nice round base with a kind of curved out hip. I call this lower portion the hip of the basket, and then it comes in and kind of curves in on the side, and then I have a nice round opening at the top. So I'm at the point in this basket where I need to add a little bit of tension to start to create that shape where it's coming in from the hip and curving up. And so I'm just going to add a tiny bit of tension, which is just pulling on the weaver very, very little bit to add that pull in on the walls. And so now I'm back to the stair step. I'm gonna go over these next two and continue weaving. If you're working with an odd number of stakes, again, you won't have that stair step. You'll just continuously weave in a plain weave pattern. And I'll do this all the way to the end of this weaver. Let's see how fast I can go. And here I'm going to need to cut a little bit off my length of the weaver because it doesn't quite reach the outside edge of this stake it would go over, and you don't want to end it behind the stake. So I'm going to cut right on top on the outside edge there, and that's where I would start another length. Some reasons to use the continuous weave technique is that it creates a nice weaving flow because you're not ending every row like in the start and stop technique, which you can watch that video up here and in the description below. You aren't ending and starting every single row separately, and so you can just weave around until you run out of your length of weaver. And so the flow is nice. You can get into the weaving. You're not picking up your scissors as often. It's more efficient if you're worried about efficiency, but it does have its specific uses. It also allows you to play with the shape of your basket a little bit more than start and stop does because you are using a continuous strand of weaver, and so you can pull a little bit more than with start and stop, where start and stop you're ending and you're overlapping the ends in the beginning of your reed, and so you need to be a little bit more careful about how much you pull or those will start to slide out. With the continuous weave, you have more torque to pull and add tension to your basket and to the weaver as you're weaving. Some baskets to use continuous weaving on are baskets that have an odd number of stakes, though I shared how you can use it on an even number of stakes on your basket. You also use continuous weave on ribbed baskets because you're building the walls of the basket, or basically the base and walls of your basket for a ribbed basket, and so you're just weaving the same we would for in the round, just up and over on the ribbed basket. And of course, another time would be on a stair-stepped round basket. So like this one with the stair-step pattern, it has an even number of stakes, but you can do the continuous weave on this style basket. To finish off a basket like this, in order to have your rim end up in a place where it is symmetrical and so that it's not tilted to one side because your weaving is kind of at a diagonal, you're going to trim down a length of your weaver so that you can fill in whichever side is lower and kind of level things out. And then you'll do one row of start and stop at the top to create that under the rim section of your basket, and then build your rim around that piece. So for this guy, I have this weaver that I've trimmed down. So one end you can see is about 1/4 of the width of my 1/4 inch wide flat oval, and then I slowly tapered it up until it reached the full 1/4 inch width. And so now I can tuck this into my basket to start weaving. And I'll weave this in as if this was the last row of my continuous weave, just the same way I did before, in an over under plain weave pattern around the top of the basket until I reach the end point, and tuck that in an over, or tuck it behind is probably best. So I'll tuck it right in here like that. So it's tucked there, and then I'll weave one over under pattern, or one start and stop row right here at the top. If you need to play in the over 2 pattern a couple times, that's okay, so that you can continue that over under pattern. So now I have one row of start and stop at the top, like that. And my basket is nice and flat because I use that tapered piece to level it out. And now you can do your cut and tuck and add your rim and complete this basket. Some reasons that you might not want to use a continuous weave on a basket are when you have an even number of stakes in a round basket like this one, but you don't want the stair step pattern, because with the even number of stakes, you can't avoid the stair step. So if you don't want stair step, don't do it on an even number of stakes. Another time is when you want straight, even rows that are built on each other like a brick wall, which we go over in this start and stop basket weaving video. And that's a little bit about continuous weave in rattan basket weaving. I hope you enjoyed this technique and get a chance to try it. Subscribe and hit the bell so that you get notified of new basket weaving and other fiber art videos that I put out. And like this video to support my channel and to let me know that you enjoy basket weaving. Leave a comment below if you have any questions or comments. I'd love to hear from you. And check the description below for lots of resources from my website and other videos on my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and happy basket weaving. See you next time.